The sky was the color of cooled ash. The kind of blue that burned into gray, too empty to be called beautiful, too vast to feel safe. Riven Cade had stopped believing in beautiful things a long time ago. Not since the war. Not since his mother died. Not since he chose silence over the company of people who only knew how to take. His boots crunched over brittle sand as he made his way across the back lot of the old greenhouse compound. Once, years ago, this place had bloomed. The greenhouses, domed and glistening under solar glass, had held 100 species of off-world flora. Now they were skeletal cages, cracked open by wind and time. He'd been trying to repair an old irrigation conduit that morning, chasing a leak he knew wouldn't fix anything. Maybe it was just something to do. Maybe it was the way loneliness itched under his skin, needing distraction. The spade was heavy in his hand, but familiar. Digging came easy. Then it happened. The clang. Metal on metal. Wrong. Too clean a sound for rusted pipe. Too deliberate. He paused. Knelt. Riven brushed at the earth. His fingertips found smooth resistance. After 10 more minutes of digging, his breath shallow and heart hammering, he uncovered the edge of something round. Impossibly smooth. Not rusted, not broken. A perfect curve of silver, half buried beneath layers of dust and grit. He knelt closer, wiping away the sand. A window. Circular. No larger than his palm. And behind the window. A face. He jolted back, heart slamming into his ribs. It wasn't a corpse. Not exactly. The figure inside was too perfect. Too whole. And she wasn't human. Her skin was the color of ice under moonlight. Pale blue, faintly luminous. Hair like spun silver, floating as if suspended in water. Her eyes were closed, but even with them shut, Riven felt them watching him. Not a machine. Not dead. Alive? He scrambled back, breath fogging the air. The desert heat suddenly seemed cold, and the silence roared like a storm. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, Riven dragged the orb into his repair shed. The workshop had once belonged to his father, then his mother. Now it was his. Full of broken machines, solar panels, and the quiet hum of things half alive. He set the pod gently near the old fusion cabinet and pulled off the rest of the dirt with a brush. Symbols glowed faintly along the rim, some kind of script, maybe alien, maybe mathematical. He didn't recognize a single one. He should have called someone. He knew that. But he didn't. Instead, he sat on an overturned crate and watched her. Watched the slow rise and fall of her chest. The tiny frost of breath that sometimes clouded the glass. Watched, and felt something in him stir. Not just curiosity. Not just fear. Something lonelier. Something older. Morning came with blood-orange light slashing through the workshop blinds. Riven's back ached from the crate, but he hadn't moved. He reached out. Slowly. His palm touched the pod. Cold. But not lifeless. Then the symbols blinked. The pod gave a low hum. A hiss of decompression. The glass began to rise with the sound of a soft sigh. Steam poured out, cool, perfumed, something he couldn't name. And then her eyes opened. Silver. Bright. Staring straight at him. Riven froze. She didn't move. Just watched. Her chest rose rapidly now, like a person learning to breathe again. Her lips parted, and a sound emerged, not language, not yet. More like a note in the wrong key. Broken. Aching. Hey, Riven said quietly. You're okay. The woman blinked slowly. Her gaze shifted, trying to take in her surroundings. Then she coughed. Riven moved instinctively, catching her as she collapsed forward. Her body was alarmingly light. Her skin, soft as glass, was cold against his arms. Her clothing felt alien, woven from something metallic, soft and rippling. He laid her gently onto a blanket he'd brought. She curled slightly, instinctive, like a creature trying to protect its core. "Can you understand me?" he asked. Her lips moved. Nothing came out. Then, softly, "Naila." Her voice was rough. Melodic under the damage. Riven blinked. "Naila. Is that your name?" A pause. Then a weak nod. He pointed to himself. "Riven." Another pause. Then she whispered, "Riven." Over the next 2 days, they shared more silence than speech. But slowly, bit by bit, understanding grew. She didn't speak his language, not fluently. But she learned fast. Too fast. By the 3rd day, she was stringing together fragments of syntax with haunting precision. "Why did you save me?" she asked one evening, voice barely above wind. Riven sat on the workshop floor beside her, arms folded over his knees. "Felt wrong to leave you in the dirt." "Many would," she said. Her eyes were searching him, not cruelly, just deeply. Like she saw past what he wore and into something he didn't want shown. He looked away. "You're not from here." "No," she smiled faintly. "Not from this planet. Not from this silence." He chuckled dryly. "You'll get used to it." "I hope not. Nights in the desert are louder than you'd expect. The wind carries voices from far off, voices that might not be human. Or might not be anything at all." On the 5th night, Naila sat on the cot he'd built from tarp and tubing. Her gaze was fixed out the window, where a second moon was rising low. "They'll come," she said quietly. Riven glanced up from where he was repairing a damaged drone chassis. "Who?" "The ones who locked me in the sleep pod. They marked my breath. They'll smell it." He stiffened. "You're saying, someone buried you on purpose?" Her nod was slow. "I was not lost. I was hidden." A long pause. "Why?" he asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because they feared what I might become." The days bled together. Naila grew stronger. Her skin warmed. Her eyes no longer flickered with fever. She helped him in the greenhouse sometimes. Showed him how to accelerate photosynthesis using strange glyphs drawn into the dirt. It worked. The withered vines began to bloom. He began to smile again. So did she. They cooked together. Laughed. She learned his language, and he began picking up fragments of hers. Sometimes, they sat in silence, not needing to speak at all. Connection bloomed like a seed too long buried. But peace never stays. Not in stories like this. On the 9th night, it rained. Unusual for that time of year. Riven liked the sound. So did Naila. They sat near the open hatch of the shed, sharing a pot of reheated stew. Her fingers brushed his when she reached for the spoon. Neither pulled away. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me. Not just what I am." He tilted his head. "And what are you?" She didn't answer right away. Then, a mistake. Or a prophecy. Depending on who you ask. "What do I see?" he asked, before he could stop himself. She met his gaze. And her voice, when it came, was like music breaking through static. Someone who chose to stay. At 3:17 a.m. the alarm tripped. A motion sensor near the greenhouse blinked red. Riven was up in seconds, pulling on his boots, grabbing the pulse rifle he kept hidden in a wall panel. "Stay inside," he told her. Naila didn't argue. But she touched his hand as he passed. "They found me." He nodded once, grim. He moved into the yard. Slow. Careful. Night vision blinking across the terrain. Movement near the west fence. A shadow. No footsteps. No breathing. But a presence. Thick. Invasive. Riven raised the rifle. Identify yourself. Silence. Then a shape stepped into view. Humanoid. Too tall. Limbs too long. Wearing something like a coat, but shifting, like it was part of its skin. It spoke. Not aloud. Inside his mind. Return the relic. Riven's eyes narrowed. She's not a relic. You know nothing of what she is. I know she's more human than you. A pause. Then, we will take her. You will be erased. Riven fired. The shot hit square. The thing stumbled, then reformed, like smoke stitching back into shape. He turned and ran. Back to the shed. Naila, go. She was already waiting at the door, glowing faintly, hands trembling with light. They don't come alone, she warned. Then we make a stand. You'll die. Maybe. But not without trying. She stared at him. Then, slowly, Naila stepped forward and kissed him. Light bloomed behind his eyes. Like every hidden thought, every buried ache, every unspoken word was seen. If we survive this, she whispered, I want to see what a real sky looks like. Not one full of war. Then let's give it to you. Together, they stepped into the storm. At first, there was only stillness. The kind that wrapped itself around her bones like old dust. She had no name. No time. No breath. She only knew that she had fallen through 100 dreams and landed in one where the sky never moved. But then came warmth. Not fire, not pain. A warmth that pulsed with quiet life. Steady. Like a hand waiting to be held. Her eyes opened for the second time in this world to find the ceiling of a shed made of wood and memory. A breeze tickled her skin. Distant thunder rolled across a blue-gray sky. The smell of rain lingered on the air, soft and nostalgic. This world is alive, she thought. And I'm still inside it. Riven stood with his back to her. Hunched over a workbench, oil staining his fingers. A soft tremor in his shoulder told her he was tired. But he hadn't left. He hadn't run. She'd seen that fear in others before. Long ago. When she'd first shown them who she was, what she could do. This man had looked straight at the light inside her and hadn't flinched. Naila sat up slowly. Her muscles ached less now. Her skin didn't buzz with the sick static of stasis residue anymore. She flexed her fingers. No sparks. No heat. Not yet. You're awake, Riven said without turning. She nodded, though he couldn't see. You stayed. You didn't give me much choice, he said, a crooked smile in his voice. You could have sold me to the syndicates, she said softly. I know they're still active on this planet. He looked over his shoulder. His eyes, storm-colored, softened. That's not who I am. No, she said, but you could have been. He turned then. Walked toward her, slow, cautious but not afraid. He crouched down beside her. How do you feel? Like I woke up from a death I didn't choose. He gave a short nod. You were in that pod a long time. How long? I ran some scans. Best guess, 78 years, local time. Naila swallowed. Everyone I knew is dust. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable. Like silence that grew in places where trust had started to form. She looked down at her hands. The veins beneath her skin shimmered faintly, like galaxies held just below the surface. I don't remember the end, she whispered. I remember the chase. The betrayal. I remember someone I loved telling me to run. Then, nothing. Until you. Riven didn't speak. He just listened. Her voice faltered for a moment. You said I wasn't a relic. Because you're not. But I am, she said, her tone breaking. I'm what they buried to keep themselves safe. I'm what scared even my own kind. He didn't touch her. Not yet. But he knelt closer. Then maybe it's time someone stopped being scared. Over the next few days, she watched him more closely. Not just his movements, which were precise and mechanical, but his silences. Riven Cade was a man carved out of quiet grief. It clung to him like the dust on his boots. But he never turned it outward. He just lived around it. He brought her food, even when he didn't eat himself. He repaired her bracelet without asking what it was. He asked permission before every question. Once, she found him standing in the greenhouse at sunset. Not fixing anything. Just standing among the blooming vines she'd helped coax back to life. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes lost in the light. You miss her, she said gently. He startled but didn't deny it. My mother loved this place. Said the sky here made everything grow better. Naila smiled faintly. Your mother was wise. She also once punched a federal collector for stepping on her ivy, he added. Naila laughed. Really laughed. It felt like peeling off another layer of stasis, another layer of fear. She stepped closer. Riven. He looked at her. Thank you for choosing not to fear me. Thank you for giving me something to believe in again. On the fifth night, the stars shifted. She felt it before the scanners picked it up. A flicker of wrongness. Like a thread being pulled tight across the weave of the sky. They're scanning, she said as she ran into the workshop, her bracelet pulsing violently with heat. Not with sensors. With thought. Riven's brow furrowed. How the hell does that work? They're seekers. Sight-trackers. They scan by resonance. The kind of energy no firewall can block. Can they find you? Only if I send back a signal. He studied her face. And she knew the question behind his eyes. What happens if you do? I'd rather die than be theirs again, she said, and meant it. But Riven, stubborn man that he was, stepped forward and gripped her wrist gently. You won't have to. His hand lingered. Hers did too. It happened during a storm. The kind of desert storm that turns the world sideways. They'd just finished rigging a shielding array from a salvaged skimmer panel when the sky cracked open. Not lightning. A rift. A tear in the air. And out of it, a shape. A drone. Not native. It floated down like a falling leaf. No propulsion. No fire. Just silence. Naila froze. Do not touch it, she hissed. Riven nodded, stepping back. But the drone scanned the area. Light flickering in rhythmic pulses. They're here, she said. How many? She closed her eyes. Reached out. Her mind brushed across the void, and felt the cold weight of many. A fleet. Half an hour out. Not large, but enough. Riven turned to her. What do they want? Me. Then they'll have to get through me. Naila opened her eyes, silver glowing. You'd fight for me? Riven didn't hesitate. I already am. They set traps. Glyphs etched in salt and copper, buried around the greenhouse perimeter. Old world turrets, reactivated with jury-rigged power lines. Naila poured what energy she had left into barriers, symbols drawn in starlight, invisible to humans, searing to those who hunted her. She bled for each mark. Riven held her hand afterward. Neither spoke of the pain. At midnight, they came. 3 ships. No lights. No sound. They didn't land, they hovered. Then, from the belly of one, a figure descended. Not human. Tall, cloaked in shimmering dark matter. Faceless. Beautiful, in the way dying stars were beautiful, terrible, inevitable. Naila of Anthera, the voice echoed. Not aloud. In every cell of her body. You will return to us. I will not, she replied aloud. Her voice rang across the valley. Riven stood beside her, crowbar in hand. The figure turned its head slowly. And you, human. You were not part of this weave. Riven stepped forward. I am now. Then the attack began. They fought as one. Riven with tools turned weapons. Blades hidden in wrenches. Explosives made from fusion cores. Naila with light, called from the well of her blood. For a time, they held. But the seekers were many. And then Riven fell. A slash across his ribs. Naila screamed. Her light erupted. The sky broke open. Time slowed. The attackers froze. She rose, floating, no longer bound to the ground. Her voice was no longer hers. It was the voice of every star she had ever carried within. This world is not yours. She reached for Riven, lifted him in the air with light alone. He breathed again. She exhaled. And the invaders vanished. Turned to ash by something no science could name. Afterward, they sat together in the ruins of the greenhouse. Naila rested her head against his shoulder. He didn't flinch. You burned yourself to save me, he said. You saved me first, she whispered. Riven kissed her forehead, gently. You're not a mistake. No, she said, eyes closing. I'm not. He hadn't planned on coming back. Not to that side of the planet. Not to those coordinates. Not to the memory of the man he once called brother. But the sky changed. And Theo Marsh always followed the sky. His skimmer, cobbled together from scrap and faith, hovered over the ruined outpost like a dragonfly with nowhere left to land. Sensors beeped in lazy warning. Background radiation minimal. Atmospheric pressure stable. Everything looked fine. But it wasn't. Not when the soil beneath him was scorched in a perfect spiral. Not when the clouds above still shimmered faintly, like the fabric of space had been pulled too tight and nearly snapped. He exhaled and adjusted the glide lever, descending. The old base was listed in his logs as abandoned. A meteor site. Forgotten. A whisper between storms. But the signal that had pinged from it 3 nights ago wasn't old. It had pulse. Pain. And a voice. A single cry in an impossible dialect. Naila. He didn't know her. Not directly. Just the name, barely spoken over encrypted comms, carried in Riven's half-deleted letters from years ago. Always described like a myth. A woman asleep in silver. A ghost buried in the sand. Theo had ignored most of it. Until now. The base was broken. Split down the center like a mouth forced open too wide. Half-sunken towers jutted from the earth, blinking faintly with residual power. The wind carried static and sand. The kind that clung to your lungs and made you forget what clean air tasted like. He walked slowly. Pulse rifle slung across his back. Helmet visor down. Then, from the corner of his eye, movement. Not a shimmer. Not a flicker. A shape. Slumped near the edge of the crater. He ran toward it. A body. Female. Armor scorched. Hair matted with ash and blood. But alive. Barely. He dropped to one knee. Scanned. Bioreadings were erratic, heart too fast, blood pressure collapsing. But something about her didn't match the standard species profile. Her skin was warm. Too warm. Metallic at the edges. When he touched her wrist, he felt a pulse through his own veins. A hum. Soft. Familiar. Not hers. Naila's. His breath caught. This girl, no, this woman, was connected to her. Before he could process it, her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Eyes opened. Golden. Fractured. Like stained glass cracking in slow motion. She tried to speak. Failed. Then rasped out a name. Iskari. Her own name. His throat tightened. You're safe, he whispered. She stared at him. Not like a stranger. But like someone who recognized a shadow behind his eyes. And then she passed out. He brought her aboard his skimmer. Patched what wounds he could. She didn't wake that night. But she dreamed. He could see it in her movements. Her lips moved, whispering words in a language the translator couldn't parse. Her fingers twitched as if reaching for something, or someone, she couldn't reach anymore. He stayed by her side. Not out of obligation. But because something deep in him, something buried long ago, stirred when he saw her. She woke on the second day. Not with panic. Not with fear. Just, silence. Where am I? Her voice was clearer now. Safe, he replied, pouring water into a tin cup. Skimmers rigged with stealth plating. Even fleet scouts won't ping it. She took the cup. Her fingers brushed his. A tiny jolt passed between them. Subtle. But not imagined. You found me. The signal led me. You're not one of them. No. A pause. Then her golden eyes locked with his. But you carry something of hers. He didn't flinch. Naila. Iskari nodded. You knew her. I was raised on her story, she said quietly. She was the first to disobey the weave. The what? Our code. Our order. The way the stars were meant to move. He frowned. Sounds like a cult. Sometimes, she whispered, it felt like one. He sat beside her, uncertain. And what are you, Iskari? She looked out the window. And the starlight caught the silver lines veining through her skin. A fragment. Born from two worlds, not welcomed by either. I am what Naila left behind when she chose freedom. His chest tightened. You're her. Not child, she said quickly. No, not like that. I'm the last creation of her bloodline. A contingency. I was never meant to wake. But you did. Because she did. Over the next 3 days, they floated above the dunes. Iskari healed faster than she should have. Her body was part biological, part engineered, and part, something else. Something ancient. She began to laugh again. Softly. Rarely. But Theo noticed. And he noticed the way she touched things, gently, reverently. Like every piece of the world was fragile. He found himself watching her too much. Then she caught him. You stare. Yeah, he said. I do. She didn't smile. Not fully. But her voice lowered. No one's ever stared at me like that without fear. He turned his eyes to the stars. Maybe you've never been seen right. A silence stretched between them. Then. You're kind, she said. Don't spread that around, he muttered. She chuckled. And the sound cracked something open inside him. On the 6th night, the signal spiked. Iskari stiffened. They found us. Who? The division. Those who still believe I am the key to controlling Naila. You're not. I know, she whispered. But truth rarely matters to power. He reached out. Took her hand. Not thinking. Just, needing to. I won't let them take you. Her eyes glistened. Why? She asked. He didn't have an answer at first. Then he leaned closer. Because the silence between them had started to sound like a song he wanted to learn. Because you're not a weapon, he said softly. You're a person. And no one's ever treated you like one. Her fingers tightened in his. Thank you, she whispered. And then, finally, she kissed him. No fire. No rush. Just warmth. Just breath. Just two people who had almost forgotten what it meant to feel safe inside someone else's presence. At dawn, the fleet arrived. Not military. Worse. The spiral kin. Ghosts of Naila's old regime. Loyal to the throne. Desperate to reverse what she had undone. They descended in silence. Iskari stood tall. Her wounds wrapped, her heart exposed. Theo stood beside her. One ship landed. A tall figure emerged. Plated in mirrored armor. Face hidden. The voice that came was not spoken. Iskari. Come home. I have no home with you, she replied. You are the last of your line. So was Naila. Naila broke the weave. She will be punished. You can restore order. She didn't break the weave, Iskari said. She rewrote it. The figure raised its hand. Weapons hummed to life. But Theo was already moving. Shield active. Blaster drawn. Touch her, he said, and I burn you to ash. The spiral kin tilted their heads. You're human. You cannot stop us. Watch me try. But it was Iskari who stepped forward. This is my choice, she said. Then she raised her hand. And from her palm, a blossom of light bloomed. Not destruction. Not war. Memory. The memory of Naila. Alive. Glowing. In love. The memory pulsed. And the spiral kin trembled. They stepped back. One by one, they vanished. The ship took off. No weapons fired. No threat spoken. Just, silence. A different kind. The kind that follows surrender. That night, under stars that had stopped humming with danger, Theo sat beside her. You showed them something real, he said. She nodded. Naila's love was always the realest thing. He turned to her. And yours? She looked at him. And this time, finally, smiled. Mine too. When she was young, if you could call those early days youth, Iskari had dreamed of oceans. Not real ones. Not the dry salt flats of Anthera or the poison seas of Tiravel. A real ocean. With wind and crashing waves. A place with storms and moonlight. Something unbound. Her people said that was a longing coded from her human side. Unrooted. Chaotic. Romantic. But now, standing in the middle of Theo's skimmer, watching the stars ripple under a fractured sky, she finally understood. The ocean she had always longed for, was love. And it was terrifying. Theo was asleep on the cot, breath even and face half-lit by the warm hum of the ship's control panel. Iskari stood by the viewport, eyes searching the darkness outside. She hadn't told him everything. Not yet. She wanted to. Needed to. But some truths didn't fit inside language. Some truths were carved into the blood. She pressed her hand to her chest. The core light still slept, but it stirred more each day. Like an ember fed oxygen. And the more she felt, the more she feared. She wasn't made the way others were. No mother bore her. No father named her. Iskari Wren was born in a cryolaboratory orbiting the red moon of Solar. Genetically fused from starborn and human matter. Not a weapon. Not exactly. More like a symbol. A bridge between Naila's forbidden legacy and the future the spiral kin couldn't control. They called her a seedling. A failed experiment. But Naila had called her something else. A choice. You never sleep much, Theo's voice murmured from behind her. She didn't turn. Sleep is hard when your dreams are louder than your thoughts. He stepped closer. Wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. You're shaking, he said softly. The light, it's waking up again. Will it hurt you? She turned then. Looked at him, really looked. I don't know if it'll hurt me, she whispered. But it might hurt you. He reached for her hand. Held it like something sacred. We'll deal with that together. Her voice cracked. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. What if I become something terrible? Then I'll remind you who you were before. They kissed again that night. Not out of fear. Not because the stars might fall. But because for the first time in either of their broken lives, they wanted to hold something real. The next morning, the sky split open again. A ship descended, sleek, silent, and not spiral kin. Iskari felt it before it even entered the atmosphere. Blood recognized blood. They're from the Vidian Enclave, she said. What does that mean? They're my mother's people. The Loyalists. Friend or foe? Depends who I've become. The ship landed half a click east of their skimmer. Iskari and Theo approached together. The valley was quiet. The sky above shimmered with tension. From the ship's mouth, a figure descended. Robes of midnight and gold. A face she hadn't seen in 80 years. Navian, she whispered. He bowed. Iskari of the line of Naila, he said, voice calm as old rain. You've awakened. Partially. And the other? She lives. Somewhere safe. The spiral kin are mobilizing again. I know. They want her. And if they can't have her, they'll take you. That's not news. His eyes shifted to Theo. And this? Mine, she said. No hesitation. Navian's lips twitched. We did not think your kind, bonded. I'm not your kind anymore. He reached into his robe and held out a crystal shard. Glowing. Pulsing. The last echo of her core light, he said. A memory seed. Iskari stepped back. If you take it, he continued, you will fully awaken. You will remember everything. Including the parts she tried to forget. Especially those. What's the price? You'll no longer be hidden. You'll be a beacon. Theo touched her arm. What happens if you don't take it? I stay, uncertain. What do you want? Iskari looked between Navian and Theo. Between her past and her future. I want to choose for myself. She turned to Navian. Leave the shard. And go. Surprisingly, he did. No threats. No tricks. He simply placed the shard on the sand and vanished with the wind. That night, Iskari didn't sleep. She stared at the shard. It glowed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Theo sat beside her. You want to take it, he said. I need to. I'll be here when you do. You don't have to be. I want to be. Why? Because, he said quietly, if there's a storm coming, I want to be the reason you don't face it alone. Her eyes burned. I'm scared. Then be scared with me. She kissed him. Harder than before. More desperate. But not hopeless. Never hopeless. She took the shard at dawn. The pain was instant. Her mind split in three. Memories poured in like fire. Naila. Naila laughing. Naila fighting. Naila kneeling beside her cradle and whispering, "You'll do what I could not." The stars burned behind her eyes. Every lineage. Every battle. Every fear. She screamed. Theo held her. "Stay with me," he whispered. She did. Just barely. When it ended, she stood taller. The air around her shimmered. Her skin pulsed faintly with veins of light. But her voice was steady. "I remember everything. Does it change anything?" "No," she said, tears on her cheeks. "But now I understand." 2 days later, a final message came. From Naila. Broadcast on a pulse only Askari could hear. "They're coming. Bring him. And be ready." They flew out that night. Into the dark. Together. Hand in hand. Knowing the flame inside her was no longer sleeping. It was awake. And ready.